Something unexpected happened at Bengals training camp, and while the first reaction around Cincinnati was concern, the latest update has completely changed the tone of the conversation. At first glance, it looked like the kind of moment every fan dreads seeing during the early days of camp. But after the coaching staff shared more information, there's finally a reason for optimism. The situation isn't perfect, but it could have been much worse. And that's exactly why everyone inside the organization is breathing a little easier today. Before we jump into everything, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Training camp is only getting started, which means there will be major updates every single day, and you won't want to miss any of them. Now, let's get to what really matters. The biggest story coming out of today's practice revolves around Shamar Stewart. After leaving practice with what initially appeared to be a very serious injury, the concern among everyone watching quickly spread. The way the play unfolded immediately raised fears that the Bengals could be dealing with a devastating setback before the season even had a chance to begin. Fortunately, that isn't what happened. After practice, head coach Zac Taylor delivered the update everyone had been waiting for. According to Taylor, Stewart suffered a hyperextended left knee, but, most importantly, the team avoided a major injury. Instead of facing the possibility of a season-ending diagnosis, the current expectation is that Stewart will miss several weeks while recovering. That changes the entire outlook. Nobody wants to see any player miss valuable training camp reps, especially a young player trying to establish himself. Every practice matters during this time of year. Every snap is another opportunity to develop chemistry, improve technique, and earn a larger role. Losing several weeks certainly delays that process. But considering what many people feared after seeing Stewart go down, this outcome feels significantly better than expected. Taylor acknowledged how difficult it was watching Stewart leave the field after putting in so much work leading up to camp. Still, the fact that the injury wasn't more severe gives both the coaching staff and the player a chance to focus entirely on recovery, with the expectation that he'll return. That is the most important takeaway. Even though Stewart will be sidelined for now, the door immediately opens for other players to receive additional opportunities. As practice continued, Isaiah Foskey stepped into Stewart's spot with the second defensive unit. That substitution may end up becoming one of the more interesting developments over the next several weeks. Foskey arrived in Cincinnati looking for an opportunity to revive his career, and injuries have a way of creating opportunities throughout the NFL. This doesn't guarantee anything, but it certainly gives him more chances to prove he deserves a place on the roster. Training camp competitions can change quickly. One day a player is fighting simply to make the team. The next day he's receiving meaningful reps because someone ahead of him is unavailable. Now the focus shifts toward seeing how Foskey responds with those additional opportunities. Cedric Johnson also finds himself in a position where every practice becomes increasingly valuable. With Stewart unavailable for the time being, the competition along the defensive front naturally becomes even more important. One thing today's developments highlighted is how quickly perceived depth can disappear. Before practice, the defensive line looked loaded with options. After one injury and several veterans unavailable, suddenly the picture looks much different. That's exactly why teams constantly talk about depth throughout the offseason. It isn't just about having talented starters. It's about having enough capable players ready whenever injuries inevitably happen. Today's practice served as another reminder of that reality. The Bengals were also without B.J. Hill, who remains on the PUP list. While he can return whenever he's medically cleared and continue working individually, his absence was noticeable during practice. Jonathan Allen also had the day off. According to Zac Taylor, veteran players are expected to receive days off during camp. So there wasn't any indication that Allen was dealing with a new injury designation. Still, when Hill isn't practicing, Allen has the day off, and Stewart is recovering from a hyperextended knee, suddenly the defensive front looks considerably thinner than expected. That forced other players into larger roles. Chris Jenkins Jr. filled in for Jonathan Allen during practice, while McKinley Jackson also saw additional work. The conversation surrounding the defensive tackle group has been interesting, because there had been outside discussion about whether Cincinnati possessed enough depth to potentially move one of those players. Days like today show exactly why keeping depth matters. Training camp can change almost instantly. One injury, one day off, one unavailable player. Suddenly, everyone lower on the depth chart becomes much more important. It also reinforces how valuable every roster spot can become over the course of a long season. Another unusual story emerged from camp involving Eric All Jr. after generating excitement heading into the season because he's healthy and back on the field. All shared an unexpected experience from about a month ago while in Greece. According to him, he was struck by what he described as a vehicle similar to a moped with a hood. He explained that, after being thrown, he got up feeling good physically, and that experience actually gave him confidence about where he stood in his recovery. It's certainly not the type of off-season story anyone expected to hear. After everything he's already worked through physically, hearing that he was involved in that incident naturally catches everyone's attention. The encouraging part is that All continues to say he feels healthy and ready to play football. Now the next step becomes translating that confidence into production on the field. Training camp stories are encouraging. Recovery stories are inspiring. But eventually everyone wants to see catches. Everyone wants to see impact plays. Everyone wants to see him consistently contributing during practices and preseason games. That's what fans will be watching moving forward. Finally, today's standout defensive play belonged to Demetrius Knight. Knight intercepted Joe Burrow on what became one of the most talked-about moments from practice. The interception didn't happen in isolation either. Reports indicated that Barrett Carter applied pressure on Burrow during the play, helping force the throw that Knight ultimately intercepted. It was exactly the type of sequence coaches love seeing from young defensive players. Pressure, communication, finishing the play. Those are the moments that build confidence throughout training camp. Young defenders often receive criticism because they're inexperienced and expected to develop quickly. When they make impactful plays, those moments deserve equal attention. Knight earned recognition for the interception. Carter deserves credit for helping create the opportunity. If those kinds of plays continue throughout camp, they'll only strengthen the competition on the defensive side of the football. Overall, today's training camp produced a mixture of relief, opportunity, and optimism. The biggest headline remains the update on Shamar Stewart. While missing several weeks is never ideal, avoiding a catastrophic injury completely changes how everyone views the situation. The defensive line will now be tested as other players receive expanded opportunities. Eric All Jr. continues his encouraging return while sharing one of the more unusual off-season stories you'll hear. And the defense produced one of the day's best highlights with Demetrius Knight's interception after pressure from Barrett Carter. Training camp is still in its early stages, which means every practice can reshape expectations. Today's developments reminded everyone just how quickly things can change. But they also showed why every rep matters for players fighting to prove they belong. Now, I want to hear from you. What was the biggest takeaway from today's training camp update? Are you encouraged by the news on Shamar Stewart? And do you think the Bengals should consider adding more depth along the defensive line while he recovers? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to stay well informed. Hoo day!